Welcome to live show 144. Ladies and gentlemen, broadcasting straight to you from the heart of Minsk, Belarus. I'm your host, and tonight we're diving headfirst into the scandal that's shaking the foundations of the Trump administration, the Trump-Epstein Coverup, betrayal and failure. First of all, as you probably noticed, I took a week off as I was sick of talking about the same things, Ukraine, Gaza, Israel, even though terrible things are happening there. And tonight, I'm covering a story that has blown up across the internet and the USA, which has all marks of a cover-up. But just letting you know, next week there'll be no show on Sunday, as I'll be flying to Peru, where I was there last in 2004, and I'll be checking out Nazca lines, Machu Picchu, etc., and taking a closer look at the stonework after my discussion here with Marcel Forte about how the stonework in Egypt and most likely in Peru was cast and not cut. Here's his book here, highly recommended, The Natron Theory. And I'll have him on the show again after I come back from Peru. And stay tuned to the channels, as I'll be posting video each day from there, and I'll try to do a live show or two as well. So, folks, remember all those fiery promises. Donald Trump back on the campaign trail, vowing to expose the deep state's dirtiest secrets. Drain the swamp, he shouts. Release the Epstein files. And his hand-picked Attorney General Pam Bondi echoed it loud and clear. That infamous client list was on her desk, ready to blow the lid off the elite paedophile ring involving names like Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, and who knows who else. We were told justice was coming, victims would get closure, the truth would set us free. But fast forward to now, July 13, 2025, and what do we have? A total betrayal. The DOJ drops a bombshell memo declaring Epstein's death a suicide. No murder, no conspiracy, and worst of all, no client list to release because, get this, it doesn't exist. Further files, unnecessary. Case closed. And Trump, he's shrugging it off like it's yesterday's news, telling his own MAGA base to forget about Epstein and calling the whole thing a Democratic hoax. Meanwhile, frustration is boiling over in the White House, with clashes between AG Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel and even Dan Bongino going off on the failures. This isn't a fumble, it's a full-blown cover-up, protecting the powerful, silencing the victims, and stabbing Trump's loyal supporters right in the back. Is this the America First agenda they voted for, or a deep state ploy to bury the truth forever? And tonight, we're unpacking it all, the lies, the broken promises, the infighting, and what this means for the future of the US nation. And we're live right now, 8 p.m. Minsk, and that's 6 p.m. London, 1 p.m. New York, streaming on Rumble, X, YouTube. Stick around because you won't want to miss the explosive back down. And if you're all fired up, subscribe to this channel, share this far and wide, and smash that thumbs up. Demand the truth together. Let's go. Alright folks, let's set the stage properly, because this isn't some overnight drama. It's years in the making. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just a wealthy financer, he was a convicted sex offender who ran what many believe was an international sex trafficking ring targeting underage girls. We're talking about private islands, luxury jets, and a web of connections to the world's elite, politicians, celebrities, billionaires. Epstein's little St. James Island, dubbed Pedophile Island by some, was allegedly the epicenter of abuse where powerful men indulged the unthinkable. And in fact, that island has just been sold to someone in the Middle East. And check out Whitney Webb's books, One Nation Under Blackmail, Parts 1 and 2, for some really good in-depth detail. Highly recommended. After his death in 2019, officially ruled a suicide while awaiting trial in Manhattan jail cell. But conspiracy theories exploded, immediately claims that he was murdered to silence him, and he had dirt on everyone from Bill Clinton to Prince Andrew.
We might not learn the truth of what happened inside Manhattan's Metropolitan Correctional Center until the investigations are over. That hasn't stopped the speculation and anger swirling. That such a high-profile inmate as Jeffrey Epstein was able to apparently take his own life weeks after attempting suicide has raised questions about how he was being monitored.
I would want updates on him multiple times a day. And if my chief psychologist, the program coordinator, was contemplating taking the inmate off suicide, I would certainly expect that issue to be discussed among the facility's executive staff. This is a huge black eye on the U.S. Department of Justice, and more specifically the Bureau of Prisons.
There's anger, too, that Epstein, facing charges of the sex trafficking of underage girls, will not now face his accusers in court, not least from Democrats running for president.
The system broke down here. He should have been held for trial, and his victim should have had a chance to testify against him.
And in a letter to the Attorney General, Republican Senator Ben Sasse wrote, "The Department of Justice failed, and today Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators think they might have just gotten one last sweetheart deal. Every single person in the Justice Department, from your main Justice Headquarters staff all the way to the night shift jailer, knew that this man was a suicide risk and that his dark secrets couldn't be allowed to die with him." Prosecutors say the investigations will continue into a man who counted the likes of Bill Clinton and Donald Trump as friends. The case has threatened to implicate prominent names from the worlds of business and politics, among them his friend the Duke of York. In court documents released in the US in the last few days, the prince was accused of inappropriate behaviour towards two women. He was with the Queen at Balmoral this weekend. Buckingham Palace says any suggestion of impropriety with underage minors is categorically untrue. The conspiracy theories surrounding Epstein's death have been fueled even by presidential retweet of accusations against the Clintons. It is filling the void for Americans wondering how a man facing so many questions could be allowed to escape providing the answers. Greg Milam, Sky News, Los Angeles.
Fast forward to today, July 13, 2025, and those theories just aren't fringe anymore. They've infiltrated the highest levels of government, only to be shut down in what looks like a massive cover-up. Let's talk about Donald Trump's role in all this because it's central to tonight's show. Trump and Epstein go way, way back. Now let's talk about Donald Trump's role in all this because it's central to tonight's show. Trump and Epstein go all the way back to the 90s in New York and Palm Beach social scenes. They partied together, flew on each other's planes, and Trump even called Epstein a terrific guy who liked beautiful women on the younger side. Yeah, that's a direct quote from the 2002 New Yorker magazine profile. Trump said, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." Here's some video of them in 1992 showing them at Mar-a-Lago laughing it up with cheerleaders. Epstein's brother Mark later testified that Trump flew on Epstein's plane at least once, possibly more.
A 1992 party at Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein shared a joke and a laugh. NFL cheerleaders danced among the crowd. The video from NBC's archives was shot more than a decade before Epstein served 13 months in a Florida jail for procuring a minor for prostitution. The president characterized their relationship.
People in Palm Beach knew him. He was a fixture in Palm Beach.
But in a 2002 magazine article, Trump called Epstein a terrific guy, adding, "It is even said he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side."
But by 2007, Trump reportedly banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago after he allegedly hit on a young girl there, though that's been called a rumor. During his first presidency, Trump distanced himself.
I had a falling out with him a long time ago. I don't think I've spoken to him for 15 years. I wasn't a fan.
But in the 2024 campaign, he flipped the script. He weaponized the Epstein scandal against Democrats, promising to declassify everything if elected or re-elected. Drain the swampies say we'll release the Epstein files, expose the client list names like Clinton, Gates, all of them.
It's just very strange for a lot of people that the list of clients that went to the island has not been made public.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Probably will be, by the way. Probably.
So if you're able to, you'll be...
Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it. But yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
And his base ate it up. This was the ultimate red pill, proof of deep state paedophile ring. And when he won and appointed Pam Bondi as his Attorney General, she became the face of this promise. Bondi, a staunch Trump ally, went on the Fox News in February 2025 and said the client list was sitting on my desk right now to review. Here's this video.
Yeah, I saw your appearance at CPAC with Ben and with Ted Cruz. And one of the things that you alluded to, and this is something Donald Trump has talked about, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you. Madam Attorney General, Pam, great to spend time with you.
Thank you so much.
She hyped it big time. Binders hand out at the White House to MAGA influencers labelled the Epstein Files Phase 1. But what was on the inside? Mostly redacted flight logs, contact books and stuff the public already knew from Ghislaine Maxwell's trial. No bombshells, no client list. Critics called it a stunt. Phase 1 included evidence lists, flight logs from the Maxwell case, parts 1 through 6, a redacted contact book and a masseur list. Bondi promised more. We're committed to transparency, no cover-ups. FBI Director Kash Patel echoed her, saying the FBI was entering a new era of integrity. The FBI is entering a new era, one that will be defined by integrity, accountability, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. There will be no cover-ups, no missing documents, no stone left unturned. Anyone from the prior or current Bureau who undermines this will be swiftly pursued. If there are any gaps, we will find them. If any records have been hidden, we will uncover them, and we will bring everything we find to the DOJ to be fully assessed and transparently disseminated to the American people as it should be. The oath we take is to the Constitution, and under my leadership, that promise will be upheld without compromise. Kash Patel.
Did Jeffrey Epstein hang himself, or did somebody kill him?
Senator, I believe he hung himself in a cell in the Metropolitan Detention Center.
Are you going to release all the information about that?
Senator, we are working through that right now with the Department of Justice.
When you think you'll have it done, Kash?
I think in the near future, sir.
Like before I die?
Senator, we've been working on that, and we're doing it in a way that protects victims and also doesn't put out into the ether information that is irrelevant for production of the public, such as CSAM.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Reid.
But delays started piling up. In March, Bondi told Maria Bartiromo on Fox that Patel was working on a timeline, but we will get out as much as this we can, as fast as we can.
MAGA group is mad that they don't know more about the Epstein files. The MAGA group is mad that they don't know more about the January 6th investigation. Are you going to give us any more information on these two issues?
Sure. And first to the Epstein, I'm mad that I didn't have more information on Epstein. I was given 200 pages of documents. I've asked Director Patel. He came in after that, of course. I had asked for those documents prior to Kash coming in. Kash is going to get me all the information. I've asked him to find out why I didn't receive all those documents and he didn't receive all those documents. We've now found out, of course, that they were in New York. We've received truckload of documents of evidence, and Cash is going to give me a deadline on when he can go through that to protect, of course, the victims of sex trafficking who are wrapped into this. And he's going to give me a deadline on when he can get this, and we will get out as much as we can, as fast as we can, to the American people, because they deserve to know. Same with January 6th. We're all working on JFK right now. We will be working on Martin Luther King. All of these things that the president promised, we will be doing. They can try to hide documents from us, but they can't. It might take a little longer. We will find them and we will release them to the American people because it's transparency.
National security reviews, they claimed, tens of thousands of videos to sift through, some allegedly child porn that would never see the light of day. In May, the FBI teased released surveillance footage of Epstein's cell to debunk murder theories. Deputy Director Dan Bongino said it showed Epstein alone, no foul play.
He killed himself. You want me to get... I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
But nothing came. Frustration built. In June, Elon Musk, fresh off quitting the Trump administration, dropped a bombshell on X. Time to drop the really big bombshell. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. This is the real reason they have not made it public. Here's that tweet.
Time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day. Jesus Christ.
Musk accused Trump of suppressing files to protect himself and the elites. Trump fired back, calling it old news and saying Epstein's lawyer cleared him. Democrats piled in too. Republican Robert Garcia, ranking member of the task force on declassification, blasted Trump for suppressing files.
Release the Epstein files. That's what the far right has wanted this entire time. That's been one of their rallying cries. I hate to agree with Laura Loomer, but look, they should release them. At this point, I think that it's clearly something that's of interest to the American public. I'm not sure why they continue to go back on their promise. If there's nothing in those files that is concerning, then they should be declassified in whatever classification status they've put on them, and put them out and let the American public make that decision. And clearly, I think there are signs pointing that there are folks in the MAGA universe, maybe the president himself, who knows, that are clearly implicated in some of those documents. And so I think that the American public at this point deserve that information. And look, we don't know who's on that list and who's not, or what's in those files and what isn't. But people shouldn't be afraid of the truth, and they should be released.
And Alan Dershowitz, Trump's former lawyer and Epstein associate himself, resurfaced saying he knows the client list's names but is bound by confidentiality. Here's that video.
This is not an opinion. This is a fact. I have seen, remember, I was accused falsely on the Epstein, and ultimately I was completely cleared. The woman admitted that she may have mistook me for somebody else and withdrew all of her lawsuits. And so from day one, from the day I was accused, I said I want every document out because I knew every document would prove I was innocent. So let me tell you, I know for a fact documents are being suppressed, and they're being suppressed to protect individuals. I know the names of the individuals. I know why they're being suppressed. I know who's suppressing them, but I'm bound by confidentiality from a judge and cases, and I can't disclose what I know. But I hand to God, I know the names of people whose files are being suppressed in order to protect them, and that's wrong.
Just out of curiosity, without names, are these politicians, business leaders, both?
They're everything. And let me tell you, a lot of them are, at least one of them is somebody who was accused. Others are accusers. And the judges have said, if somebody calls themselves a victim, we're not going to give any information about them. But they may not be victims. They may be perpetrators. So we don't have information about false accusers. And we know there have been many false accusers who have accused innocent people for money. And those records are being deliberately, willfully suppressed. And they shouldn't be suppressed. If the accusation is allowed out, so should the material that diminishes the credibility of the accuser. We want total transparency on this. every single document, no redaction. That's what I've said from day one. I waive any of my rights of privacy. Anything there is about me, I'm happy because it will be exculpatory, because I know I haven't touched a woman other than my wife from the day I met Jeffrey Epstein. I don't even hug people, but I was falsely accused and I was able to prove it. And I was able to prove it through documents. And I want other people to be able to disprove false accusations through documents. But these documents are being suppressed and withheld.
Then on July 7th, the hammer dropped. The DOJ and the FBI released a 2-page memo after an exhaustive review of over 300 gigabytes of data. Key findings: no incriminating client list, no evidence of blackmail. Epstein died of suicide, confirmed by video footage from his cell block.
DOJ and FBI have now concluded there was no Jeffrey Epstein client list. What do you tell MAGA supporters who say they want anyone involved in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged crimes to be held accountable?
This administration wants anyone who has ever committed a crime to be held accountable, and I would argue this administration has done more to lock up bad guys than certainly the previous administration. And the Trump administration is committed to truth and to transparency. That's why the Attorney General and the FBI Director pledged at the President's direction to do an exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death. And they put out a memo in conclusion of that review. There was material they did not release because, frankly, it was incredibly graphic and it contained child pornography, which is not something that's appropriate for public consumption. But they committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did, and they provided the results of that. That's transparency.
As part of our commitment to transparency, the Department of Justice and Federal Bureau of Investigation has conducted an exhaustive review of investigative holdings related to Jeffrey Epstein. To ensure that the review was thorough, the FBI conducted digital searches of databases, hard drives and network drives, as well as physical searches of squad areas, locked cabinets, desks, closets and other areas where responsive material have been stored. These searches uncovered a significant amount of material, including more than 300 gigabytes of data and physical evidence. The files relating to Jeffrey Epstein included a large amount of images of Epstein, images and videos of victims who are either minors or appear to be minors, and over 10,000 downloaded videos of images of illegal child sex abuse material and other pornography. Teams of agents, analysts, attorneys and privacy and civil liberties experts combed through the digital and documentary evidence with the aim of providing as much information as possible to the public while simultaneously protecting victims. Much of the material is subject to court order sealing. Only a fraction of this material would have been aired publicly had Epstein gone to trial, as the seal served only to protect victims but not to expose any additional third parties to allegations of illegal wrongdoing. Through this review, we found no basis to revisit the disclosure of some of these materials and will not permit the release of child pornography. This systematic review reveals no incriminating client list. There was no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. We do not uncover evidence that would predate any investigation against uncharged third parties. Consistent with prior disclosures, this review confirmed that Epstein harmed over 1,000 victims. Each suffered unique trauma. Sensitive information relating to these victims is intertwined through the materials. This includes specific details such as victim names and likenesses, physical descriptions, places of birth, associates, and employment history. One of our highest priorities is combating child exploitation and bringing justice to victims. Perpetuating unfounded theories about Epstein serves neither of those ends. To that end, while we have laboured to provide the public with maximum information regarding Epstein and ensuring examination of any evidence in the government's possession, it is a determination of the Department of Justice and Federal Bureau of Investigation that no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. After a thorough investigation, FBI investigators concluded that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City on August 10, 2019. This conclusion is consistent with previous findings, including the August 19, 2019 autopsy findings of the New York City office and the Chief Medical Examiner, the November 2019 position of the Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York in connection with the investigation of the federal correction officers responsible for guarding Epstein, and the June 2023 conclusions of the DOJ's Office of the Inspector General. The conclusion that Epstein died by suicide is further supported by video footage of the common area of the Special Housing Unit, SHU, where Epstein was housed at the time of his death. As DOJ's Inspector Generals explained in 2023, anyone entering or attempting to enter the tier where Epstein's cell was located from the SUH common area would have been captured by this footage. The FBI's independent review of this footage confirmed that at the time of Epstein was locked in his cell around 10:40 p.m. on August 9, 2019 until 6:30 a.m. the next morning. Nobody entered any of the tiers in the SHU. During this review, the FBI enhanced the relevant footage by increasing its contrast, balancing the color, and improving the sharpness for greater clarity and viewability. The raw and enhanced videos are available at the following links: https://www.justice.gov/video-file1 and https www.justice.gov/video-file2. They released raw and unenhanced video showing no one entered the tier from 10:40 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. This video here. But hold on, reports say the video is likely edited and there's missing minute around midnight where the clock jumps.
Interesting. And so we're going to compare some of these things. Let's jump right in. I'll provide commentary as we go, but just understand, by the time we're done with this, you're going to have a very different perception of that missing minute. So as you can see, leading up right here, 11:58, 30 seconds or so, right now, the correctional officers are sitting at the desk right in the back here. And I also want you to keep in mind that you could just see somebody move a little bit actually. On the right over here, this is where Jeffrey Epstein's cell is. We're going to be looking at some schematics and some pictures of all of that once we get to the report. But understand, back here and to the right just a little bit, that's exactly where his cell is. You can actually see his cell from where the correctional officers are sitting. Now, the quality of the video is so poor that it's hard to see, but it looks like there's one person right here, and I believe there's someone else to the left. We just saw the time skip. We'll watch that again. Now, the most important stuff doesn't happen at the time skip, because I think it's very possible that the most important stuff happened during the time skip, but it's going to take a minute for me to fully explain why that is. But let's look again where we can see that both of the correctional officers are accounted for right here. So 3, 2, and then there's the time jump. Okay, so now you see one of the correctional officers moving around a little bit. Once again, quality is abysmal, but you can at least detect motion. By the way, if you see any time jumps outside of that missing minute, I edit these videos for time, so they may jump around some. That is not meaningful. That's just my editing. But I want you to keep in mind, the Office of the Inspector General stated that between 10:40 p.m. and 6:30 a.m., nobody approached Tier L, which is where Jeffrey Epstein is. They said nobody went up to it at all. So during that time, absolutely nobody should have gone up there. Now, as you can see right here, well, you can't really see, but there is motion. From what I can tell, there are 2 people sitting here. That's both of the correctional officers. Now, what's supposed to be happening is they are supposed to be doing checks every 30 minutes. And part of the problem is that they falsified that. That has been verified. They did falsify that they didn't actually do these checks. So what we should be seeing is them going up and checking. But they verifiably did not do that. We can locate their whereabouts. At no point do you see them walk up to Tier L. At no point do you see them actually walk over to Jeffrey Epstein's area. So basically we're 1 o'clock now, and I've combed through the entire hour. You've seen correctional officers walk on and off some, but you haven't seen anybody walk up to Tier L where Epstein is staying. So what we've established before going to the report is that between the hours of 12 and 1, you didn't see anybody go up there. You didn't observe any of the officers go up there. At no point did they go up to check or anything like that. And that's extremely important when it comes to what we're about to read. So now we're going to look at the Department of Justice's own Inspector General's review and report on Jeffrey Epstein's death. This includes a lot of really interesting things, And we're just going to jump right into it. I'm going to be highlighting a number of things, and then we're going to, at the end, talk about it all and talk about why it matters. Now, there's a lot of things that stand out in this report, some consequential and some probably less so. Like this first part may not be so consequential, but I want to point it out because I'm trying to be thorough. On July 23rd, and this is not when he died on August 10th. On July 23rd, he was found with an orange cloth around his neck. And here's a quote. Epstein first told MCC New York staff that he thought his cellmate had tried to kill him, but later said he did not know what occurred and did not want to talk about how he had sustained his injuries. Once again, he could have been being manipulative, but I want to point out everything. So I'm going to be pointing out everything that I can. Some stuff is probably more relevant than others, but I at least want to make sure that I'm thorough. So the first thing I'm going to point out is that on July 23rd, now keep in mind he died on August 10th, so this was a little bit before then. On July 23rd, after he was found with an orange rope around his neck, or an orange cloth around his neck, Epstein first told MCC New York staff he thought his cellmate had tried to kill him, but later said he did not know what occurred and did not want to talk about how he sustained his injuries. We're going to continue to get into more interesting things as we go. You're going to see shoe referenced a lot, and that's the housing unit, so just understand that's what that means. But it says here, and it says repeatedly throughout this, that the OIG found that the shoe staff did not conduct any of the 30-minute rounds after about 10:40 p.m. on August 9th. So, as they say over and over again, between 10:40 and 6:30, nobody that was part of that staff went up there. Another thing I want to point out when they're talking about the video cameras, they're saying anyone entering or attempting to enter Epstein's shoe tier from the shoe common area would have been picked up by the video camera, the one that we saw, which, as you can see, the video quality is abysmal. It is only barely perceptible when people that aren't trying to be invisible, people that don't care about being seen, walk right up to it, and you can still barely see them. So I'm not sure that I would agree with that assessment. I think that you could pretty easily get by without having been seen on that camera. Between about 10:40 on August 9th and 6:30 a.m. on August 10th, no one was seen entering Epstein's cell tier from the shoe common area. They've been very, very consistent about this. Now, this is probably something that's more common knowledge, but I at least want to go over it because it's insane to me. At approximately 7 p.m., contrary to BOP policy, but with the permission of the unit manager, Epstein is permitted to place an unmonitored telephone call to a number with a New York City area code, purportedly to speak with his mother. In actuality, Epstein speaks with someone who he allegedly has a personal relationship. After the call, Epstein is returned to his cell where he remains without a cellmate. So he was allowed to make an unmonitored jail call, which I didn't even know you could do, at 7 p.m. that same night. And we're going to see later within this report that the whole New York City area code thing doesn't really make any sense. And even though this is repetitive, I do want to repeat this part, which is that shoe staff do not conduct midnight, 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. inmate counts or any of the 30-minute rounds from 12 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. So the last time any of them would have been up there is 10:40. Now, this document goes over the way that this place is laid out, and we're going to get into some detail about this, but this right here at least shows basically how you can enter and exit the special housing unit. And where this is relative to Epstein's cell, I'm going to get into. It would be too complicated to try to explain on this page because there's some really good diagrams of that in a minute. But as you can see right here, this shows in great detail how you can get in and out of this area. So if you look at these documents right here, you'll see that Tier L, that is where Jeffrey Epstein is housed. And if you look directly to the left of that, there's a little desk with a seat, which is where the officers are hanging out. And so you can see that the line of sight to Epstein's cell is there. I mean, it's right there. And as you can see, the stairs are pretty much directly in front of that desk. So here's a photograph if you want to see what these stairs look like close up. Once again, L tier is where Jeffrey Epstein is housed. So if we're to continue to, I know the order of this is a little bit weird, but I'm trying to go in the order of the report. But this also stands out. On July 24th, after the incident on July 23rd, let's get into a little bit more detail about what Jeffrey Epstein claimed. So when he was being assessed, the staff psychologist said it was unclear whether Epstein had placed a string around his neck or if someone else did. In addition to that, according to BOP records, Epstein told the medical staff he did not want to talk about how he sustained injuries, but believed his cellmate had something to do with it. Obviously, that could be a lie. But what's even more interesting to me is the Bureau of Prison Special Investigative Services opened an investigation into this incident, but was unable to determine whether Epstein harmed himself or had been assaulted. So it was still unclear to them, even after investigating it, what had happened. A search of Epstein's cell following his death revealed Epstein had excess prison blankets, linens, and clothing for his cell, and that some had been ripped to create nooses. He had, not only did he have things he shouldn't have, he had excess blankets and linens, which they'd said is because he, ultimately, I'll just go ahead and explain. Essentially, they're saying that because there originally was supposed to be another cellmate, that those were left there for the other cellmate. But the idea that he basically had double the amount of linens and blankets and so forth after what was alleged on July 23rd is crazy. So here's a picture of what his cell block or his tier looked like. And as you can see by this graph over here, or this little picture over here, Epstein's cell was in the very, very front. And this, interestingly, is the view from the correctional officer's seated area. As you can see from that graph, they sit here. This is what it would look like. So they can basically see where that red circle is, where Jeffrey Epstein's cell is. And then this would be the view from Jeffrey Epstein's cell, so he can look down and see the officer's station. Now I want to highlight a little bit about what the correctional officers were actually doing that night. So, as it says, that the Noel and Thomas can be seen at the shoe officer's station, moving to the shoe common area and into the shoe laundry entrance and exit areas throughout the morning of August 10th, which we've seen on the video. I think that the laundry entrance and exit, I believe that's probably room the 46, the one that's right up against the camera. I'm not sure about that, but that's about the only thing that would make sense to me. OIG analysis of the activity on the shoe computers revealed that Noel used the computer periodically throughout the night, including to search the internet for furniture sales and benefit websites and to read a news article about Epstein, which is interesting. I wonder why that night she was reading an article about Epstein. Thomas used the computer briefly around 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. to search for motorcycle sales and sports news. I think what stands out about that to me is that they were Googling Epstein. I wish that they would include specifically what the news article was, what time it was. Those types of things, they seem like relevant details. All right, let's review Epstein being allowed to make an unmonitored telephone call on August 9th. We referred to that earlier. Let's get into more specifics. So BOP policy requires that all inmate telephone calls be made through the inmate telephone system. BOP records reflect that Epstein placed an unrecorded, unmonitored telephone call to a telephone number in the local 646 area code using a non-inmate telephone system line on August 9th, 2019, from 6:58 p.m. to 7:19 p.m. So you got about 21 minutes. And no other BOP records exist regarding the unmonitored call, including the identity of the person called or a summary of the conversation. So basically, they let Epstein make an unrecorded call. They plugged in the phone, and I'm going to just read this part. According to the unit manager, a male answered, and the unit manager handed the receiver to Epstein. The unit manager heard Epstein say, "Hey, how you doing? How's everything?" The unit manager admitted he should have verified who was on the line, as Epstein had requested to make a telephone call to speak with his mother, and it was a male who answered the phone. The unit manager said he could not verify the phone number because he believed that Epstein did not have his inmate telephone system account set up. He did not have any phone numbers associated with his account. Incredibly strange. Incredibly strange. So check out this part. This is where the whole area code thing gets very strange. So the OIG investigation determined that Epstein did not, in fact, speak with his mother, who, according to public records, died in 2004. Okay, so he actually spoke with Individual 1, who declined to be interviewed by the OIG. Individual 1's lawyer told the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York during an attorney proffer that Individual 1 spoke with Epstein on August 9th, 2019, at about 7 p.m. for approximately 20 minutes, which is confirmed. We have that. Individual 1's attorney proffer was that Individual 1 was in the country of Belarus at the time of the call. So, did they patch him through from a New York number to Belarus? Like, this is, once again, incredibly strange. Individual 1's attorney told the U.S. Attorney's Office that during the telephone call, Epstein told Individual 1 that the press had gotten crazy and they discussed personal things such as books, music, and hygiene while incarcerated. According to the representation by Individual 1's counsel, Epstein told Individual 1, "They are trying to keep me safe," and that his case would take a little longer than he originally thought. He told Individual 1 that he loved her to be strong and that he would not be able to call her again for another month. Now, this part right here, aside from that whole weird Belarus thing, they are trying to keep me safe. Now, this seems like a pretty wild statement to me. They are trying to keep me safe. Now, I suppose that could be in the context of they're trying to keep him safe from himself, but that would be a strange thing to say. I have a feeling that is not what that means. So, another thing that's very strange and really stands out in this report. So now this is getting more confusing because the first person said they heard a male voice. And this, he refers to individual one as her. So now we've got conflicting information. And then we got one last piece of information that I find really concerning. The Northeast Regional Director told the OIG that if Epstein's call was authorized by an MCC New York official, then it should have been done on a speakerphone while being monitored by a staff member, and the call should have been logged and a record of the call should have been created. Okay, that's pretty much expected. The Northeast Regional Director said Epstein's unmonitored telephone call was extremely concerning because we don't know what happened on that call. It could have potentially led to the incident, Epstein's death, but we will never know. It's quite a bold statement, particularly because it's not brought up again. So now we're going to talk about the part that matters about the missing minute. And there's a little bit to cover here. It's not just this one guy. So we're going to be covering a couple of different inmates, but we're going to start with inmate 5. Hopefully this helps you better understand why I am now a lot more skeptical about that missing minute than I was before. The OIG participated in interviews of 3 inmates assigned to the same shoe tier as Epstein at the time of his death, who were housed in cell opposite Epstein's cell and therefore had a direct line of sight to Epstein's cell. Keep in mind, these interviews would have all been done separately. One such inmate was inmate 5, who was assigned to a cell directly across from Epstein's cell on the left side of the tier, who told the OIG he could see all the cells on the right side of L tier where Epstein was housed. Now, that being said, if you look at what the housing looks like, the door is solid with a little window, so he would physically have to walk over and look through that little hole to be able to see the rest of the cell. It's not like he could just look over and see everything. Inmate 5 believed a count was last conducted within the shoe on August 9th, 2019, a little before 12 a.m. Now, keep in mind, 10:40 was the last time anybody went in there, which to me is not a little before 12 a.m. And on top of that, I assume these guys don't have watches. I don't know if there's a clock in there or not. Probably not. But we're pretty good at telling gross amounts of time. Within an hour or so, we're pretty good at estimating time, even when we're sleeping. The human body is very good at detecting these kinds of things, even if you're not looking at sunlight. So the fact that he thought that it was a little before 12 a.m., I think you should pay attention to. In addition to that, places like this are very routine. So they're going to be specific times. Things usually happen. So if everybody's in their cells by a certain time, they'll be used to that. So this should be a pretty close approximation to the time. Inmate 5 believed a count was last conducted within the shoe on August 9th, 2019, a little before midnight or 12 a.m., and said that no additional count was conducted after that time. Inmate 5 did not see anyone or hear anyone go into Epstein's cell on the night of August 9th or the morning of August 10th prior to the male CO discovering Epstein. Now let's go to inmate 6. His is fairly similar in terms of where he's located, so I won't read all that, but he said that they never conducted the 30-minute rounds. Inmate 6 believed the COs last checked on inmates in the shoe on August 10th between 12:30 a.m. and 1 a.m. Inmate 6 did not observe anyone entering Epstein's cell after Epstein returned from his legal visit, did not hear noise that night, and said Epstein's door was not opened during the night. So we now have 2 inmates on the same tier saying that around midnight, someone came to Epstein's cell, that was the last time they did any sort of checks. So you could say, well, they're wrong. It was 10:40. They just don't know what time it is. And maybe that's the case. But this does not seem close to me. They didn't say 11, 11:30. Both of them guessed between midnight and 1 a.m. or slightly before midnight and 1 a.m. So we're talking about a time frame that is nothing like 10:40, and I think is very interesting that they believe that happened. In addition, the OIG and the FBI interviewed 7 inmates assigned to other tiers in the shoe, none of whom had any direct knowledge of how Epstein died. These inmates consistently reported that the shoe officers did not systematically conduct the counts and rounds as required on the evening Epstein died, and the last round was either around 9:30 to 10 p.m. or 12:30 to 1. Several inmates told the OIG that before Epstein died, the shoe staff never conducted rounds at night. So once again, now it doesn't say how many of them, there's other people, there's more inmates that somehow believe that there was somebody there between 12:30 and 1 a.m. And just so you can see, here is the angle of the camera relative to Epstein's cell. So as you can see on this little diagram here, Epstein's cell is right there. The camera cuts off right at the stairs, not in front of Epstein's cell. So if somebody really wanted to scoot by, they could come on the right side of the stairs and right over here, and you wouldn't actually see them on camera. this gives you maybe a better idea of the stairway to Tier L. This is their diagram of that. And then below that, this is the officer station, which if you weren't able to see on the video, because the video looks terrible, this is what we're talking about. So if you look at this red circle right here, that's actually the camera. So behind the camera is actually another room, which I think is interesting. So I had no idea, I had no frame of reference that there was actually something behind the camera as well. Now there's one thing that is missing from this report that I think is extremely important. We were told that every night a minute is missing because of the way that the cameras work. And when I reviewed the video originally, I thought, okay, that seems logical enough. I hadn't heard that explanation yet, but the time seems too round. Nowhere in this is it mentioned that there is a missing minute. This is a thorough investigation by the Office of the Inspector General of the Department of Justice. And even though they might have had the same conclusion that a minute's not that big of a deal, that would have been mentioned in this report somewhere. Somebody should have noticed that, because they do go through in very detailed ways and talk about what they observed. So the idea that that was not mentioned and now that's their explanation is curious. Another thing that is curious is that now we have multiple inmates talking about that somebody came on around between midnight and 1, that was the last time somebody checked on them. Nowhere does it indicate the questions they were asked. It does not say who came in to check on them. It doesn't say which officer they thought it was. It doesn't give any details whatsoever at all, other than vaguely between midnight and 1, 2 of the inmates reported somebody there, and then the other inmates, of several inmates, it doesn't specify how many of them, also believed between 12:30 and 1, somebody was in the unit. All right, we're going to stop reviewing here and talk about what we found. So when I thought midnight is too even of a number, we probably shouldn't pay that much attention to it, that was a mistake. I should have paid more attention to that, because it seemed like, as I said, the simplest explanation was probably the right one, and 1 minute missing, that's probably a normal thing. Nowhere in this report is that missing minute noted. Nowhere does it say that the DVRs skip a minute every night. Now that seems like the kind of detail 128-page report that would probably be in there. So do I think that missing minute is related to all of this? Given that it wasn't noted in the report, which means maybe it wasn't missing back then, given the other facts that have been talked about by the inmates, and given everything else that we looked at today, it's hard to imagine that missing minute is not starting to look a lot more intentional than it did a couple of days ago. That doesn't mean that the people at the top, like Pam Bondi, don't actually believe that the missing minute is not explainable, because that's probably what she's been told. So when I talked about yesterday that she believed that, I actually think that's true. She, I think, found that to be a very compelling point. Her body language suggested that she really thought that was an important point, and they were going to go through and demonstrate and prove that missing minute is a normal thing. Although at this point that seems almost impossible, because according to this, they've upgraded all of their DVR systems, so they can't go now and take clips of recordings that they do now and show that missing minute. That would make absolutely no sense, because everything's been updated. And I would be shocked if they kept records of all of that older stuff. So how they're going to prove that, I don't know. I'll be very curious myself if or how they try to prove that.
But the memo says no further disclosures are warranted. Much of the material is child exploitation stuff they won't release. And no new charges against third parties. This directly contradicts Bondi's earlier hype. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt tried to spin it. Bondi meant all the paperwork, not a specific list.
Caroline, okay, so the FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox News. Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars.
Trump, he shrugged it off at a cabinet meeting. Are you guys still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. Unbelievable. Here's this video.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is Unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said I was asked a question about the client list.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet. And my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by it.
He defended Bondi as doing a fantastic job and urged supporters to forget about the Epstein, called it a Democratic hoax. And Trump on Truth Social said, "What's going on with my boys, and in some cases gals? They're going after the Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's doing a fantastic job. We're on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect administration, the talk of the world, and selfish people are trying to hurt it all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. For years it's Epstein over and over again. Why are we giving publicity to files written by Obama, crooked Hillary, Comey, Brennan, and the losers of the criminal Biden administration? Who conned the world with the Russia hoax, 51 intelligence agencies, the laptop from hell, and more? They created the Epstein files, just like they created the fake Hillary Clinton, Christopher Steele dossier, and they used on me. And now my so-called friends are playing right into their hands. Why didn't these radical left lunatics release the Epstein files if there was anything in there that could have hurt the MAGA movement? Why didn't they use it? They haven't even given up on John F. Kennedy or Martin Luther King files, no matter how much success we had securing the border, deporting criminals, fixing the economy, and energy dominance, a safer world where Iran will not have nuclear weapons. It's never enough for some people. We're about to achieve more in 6 months than any administration has achieved in over 100 years. And we have so much more to do. We're saving our country and making America great again, which we will continue to be our complete priority. The left is imploding. Kash Patel, the FBI, must be focused on investigating voter fraud, political corruption, Act Blue, the rigged and stolen election in 2020, and arresting thugs and criminals instead of spending month after month looking at nothing but the same old radical and left inspired documents of Jeffrey Epstein. Let Pam Bondi do her job. She's great. The 2020 election was rigged and stolen, and they've tried to do the same thing in 2024. That's what she's looking into as AG and much more. 1 year ago our country was dead, and now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. Let's keep it that way and not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cares about. Thank you for your attention in this matter." But the backlash was imminent and ferocious, especially from the MAGA base. At the Conservative conference in Tampa, calls to fire Bondi dominated. PBS reported growing criticism from Trump's own supporters. ABC News said that they are demanding her resignation. On X and conservative media, it's a meltdown. Benny Johnson did a 90-minute YouTube rant. The federal government is officially confirming the cover-up is complete. General Flynn, President Trump, please understand the Epstein affair is not going away. If the administration doesn't address the massive number of unanswered questions about Epstein, especially the abuse of children by elites, it's very clear the abuse occurred, then moving forward on so many other monumental challenges our nation is facing becomes much harder. Trust was deeply violated by both Joe Biden and Barack Obama, and that your administration must be above reproach. And never forget, anyone who causes these little ones to stumble would be better to have a millstone hung around their neck and be drowned in the depths of the sea. We cannot allow pedophiles to get away, and I don't personally care who they are or what elite or powerful position they hold. They must be exposed and held accountable. Robbie Stark posted, "Was she lying then, or is she lying now? We deserve answers." And Laura Loomer and others torched Bondi and Patel. A tweet by Laura Loomer. Scoop. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are livid with Pam Bondi over her DOJ memo and the lack of transparency from her office regarding the Jeffrey Epstein files. Source tells me Dan Bongino is taking the day off today from his job as Deputy Director of the FBI, and now there's speculation on whether he or not will return to his job at the FBI over his disgust with Bondi's lack of transparency and handling of the Epstein files. Pam Bondi has brought total embarrassment to President Trump, J.D. Vance, D. Bongino and Kash Patel. She has also lied to the American people. Untold Kash and Bongino are furious for Bondi and the blowback she has caused with them with her lack of transparency. And Elon Musk amplified it, posting multiple times about the government protecting paedophiles. Inside the White House, frustration is boiling. CNN reports advisors are furious with Bondi for bungling it, over-promising and under-delivering. The Rolling Stone magazine says the administration is bracing for MAGA revolt. The Economist notes they can't shake cover-up rumours, especially since MAGA endorsed the theories. Fox News even joined the pile-on, calling it a flop, blaming deep state holdovers.
This guy, Epstein, was accused of being intel. Do you think this adds up?
No, I don't think this adds up. You've hit it on the head, and so has Barry. I think you're both exactly right on this. We really don't know anything because the FBI doesn't want us to know anything. I'm not blaming the FBI director, Kash Patel, or the deputy director, Dan Bongino. I think that layer beneath them, that's part of what we like to call the deep state, has taken this bull by the horns, and they've probably destroyed information. Look at what the CIA did in 1975 after Congress ordered that it release all of its files related to an operation called MK-Ultra. The director of the CIA went back to headquarters and ordered everything to be destroyed. And in the end, only about 20% of the documents survived. We're still learning about the FBI's operations against Martin Luther King 55 years after the fact. So now we're supposed to believe that everybody's telling the truth, that there were no files, there were no dossiers. I'm sorry, I just don't buy it because I know how these people operate.
Yeah, and Bondi and Kash and Bongino, they're great Americans. And,
yes.
But this stinks. This just reeks. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much.
And the WSWS talks about crisis in the Trump White House. From the left, The Nation says many are still interested despite Trump's rage at questions. NBC calls it a faceplant after stoking expectations. Reuters reports DOJ scrambling to defend the about-face. The New York Times notes the memo undercuts Bondi's promises. Axios broke the story, calling it the first official contradiction of conspiracies by the Trump's team. BBC and NPR covered the memo's details, highlighting the suicide confirmation and no list. DW reported Trump urging MAGA to forget it. So why the cover-up? Is Trump protecting himself? His name pops up in old allegations, a dismissed lawsuit claiming assault, though denied, or shielding Clinton, Gates, others for some deal. Musk thinks so. Some say deep state pressure. Patel and Bongino were conspiracy pushers before joining, and now they're towing the line. Bill O'Reilly hinted it's to avoid damaging acquaintances. Here's the video.
I talked to President Trump man to man, eye to eye, on St. Patrick's Day about this and the Kennedy files and the King files. It was all one conversation. And he said, and I agree, there are a lot of names associated with Epstein that had nothing to do with Epstein's conduct. They maybe had lunch with him or maybe had some correspondence for one thing or another. If that name gets out, those people are destroyed because there's not going to be any context. Media doesn't care about context. So you can't do that. You can't destroy human beings by putting out the files, whatever they may be.
But victims suffer most. Girls trafficked, abused, no justice, no closure. The memo omits withheld documents are graphic, yet no arrests. So, if there's nothing to see, why is Giselle Maxwell in prison? This erodes trusts. Polymarket odds on declassification tanked early on. If MAGA turns, midterms flip.
It's not about just a pedophile ring and all that. This is about who governs us, right? And that's why it's not going to go away. For this to go away, can we blow the brake, by the way? Can we blow the brake, guys? For this to go away, you're going to lose 10% of the MAGA movement. If we lose 10% of the MAGA movement right now, we're going to lose 40 seats in 26. We're going to lose the president. They don't even have to steal it, which they're going to try to do in 28, because they're going to sit there and they've disheartened the hardest core populist nationalists that's always been who governs us.
But Mark, for you, it's personal. This was your brother, and just so everybody knows, Mark wasn't part of anything that his brother was doing in this regard. He's never been connected to it. There's never been a suggestion. It's not about that. But Mark, you do not believe what the administration, the Trump administration, is putting out about your brother now. Why?
Well, every time they say something or do something to try to quash the fact that he was most likely murdered, they just put their foot further down their mouth. I mean, for instance, Kash Patel in the congressional hearing, he listed his credentials as a prosecutor and other such things, and he said that it was a suicide. He said, you know a suicide when you see it. That's basically what he said. So the questions that popped into my mind was, first of all, number one, how many suicides has he seen? Number one. Two, is he a forensic pathologist? Does he have a medical degree? Does he have a certificate that he passed the CPR course? Does he have a Boy Scout merit badge for first aid? What is he basing his expertise on? Contrast that to Dr. Roman, who was a city pathologist who did the autopsy. She came out of the autopsy and said she couldn't call it a suicide because it looked too much like a homicide. Dr. Michael Bodden, who was there on my behalf, who witnessed the autopsy, also concurred that it looked more like a homicide than a suicide. Now, was Kash Patel in the autopsy room? No. Was Kash Patel in the prison when they found Jeffrey? No, I don't think so. And if he was there, that raises even a bigger question. So every time they say something, I mean, when Kash Patel came out with that statement, I laughed at how stupid it was. And then they just released this video. This you're going to like. After the death, a few days after the death, Bill Barr, the Attorney General, said he saw that video and he saw that nobody went in or out of the tier, and that convinced him it was a suicide. And I heard that and I realized how stupid that was, because no one could get to that door, go in, kill somebody, leave completely undetected. That's like an asinine concept. So if Jeff was killed, he was either killed by somebody on the tier or when they locked up the tier. So that's one part of it. Now, I asked to get the footage from that same camera under the Freedom of Information Act from 10 o'clock the night before until noon the following morning. That would show who locked up the tier, who were the last people on that tier. And in the morning, it would show, Michael Thomas going in the guard and finding the body, and it would show what the situation was when they removed the body from the tier. I was initially told I couldn't get that footage because it was still an open investigation. Okay, I understand that. But then when the investigation was over, I asked for that footage again, okay? And I was now told that the cameras that were operating don't show that area.
That's right.
I have this in writing from the Bureau of Prisons, that the cameras that were operating
I
don't
remember.
show that. And I was very specific about the footage, and it's the same footage that Bill Barr saw.
No, Mark, listen, I get it. I get it. And the transparency wasn't there. And then they said that there was a malfunction. Then they said they weren't coordinated. And look, I get why you guys are upset about what's happening here. But I can tell you this, it's not over.
Is this the deep state winning or Trump prioritizing unity over truth? We need unredacted files, independent review. So folks, that's the breakdown. Demand answers, subscribe, share, thumbs up from Minsk. Stay vigilant. I forgot to put my headphones on last time, so hopefully that works. Here we go. Sorry about that. And speaking of Epstein, folks, that ties right into the much bigger story about President Trump's broken promises in his second term. Let's dive in, or as I call it, Trump's broken promises, liar, liar, pants on fire. Check out our Substack for that. President Donald Trump's second term, now over 170 days in as of today, July 13th, 2025, is increasingly defined by his long list of unfulfilled campaign promises that have left his supporters and critics alike scratching their heads and questioning if he can actually get anything done. From those grandiose claims of ending wars and slashing the national debt to specific commitments like releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files, as we just talked about, and implementing the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, recommendations. Trump's 2024 campaign was full of hot air that's crashing hard against reality. Today, or tonight, on the show, I'm examining the key promises he's failed to keep, with a special focus on the Epstein files and those DOGE cuts and exploding national debt. The gap between what he said and what he's done is massive. One of Trump's boldest foreign policy vows was to end the Russian-Ukraine war in just 24 hours after taking office. He said, "Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine settled," as he told a crowd in Detroit back in August 2024. That's nearly a year ago. But here we sit on July 13th, and that war is still grinding on with no ceasefire anywhere in sight. Trump even admitted to Time magazine in April this year that Russian President Vladimir Putin's been tougher than expected, and the Ukrainian dictator Zelensky's wary of any deal that favors Moscow. Moreover, Trump is most likely to announce a $500 million arms package for Ukraine and more sanctions on Russia, as the Senate, led by Lindsey Graham, has a bill to put a 500% tariff on any country that deals and buys oil, etc. with Russia. This includes India and China. He always said that this war was Biden's war, but it looks like it is now Trump's war. This flop really dents Trump's rep as the ultimate diplomatic deal maker who can snap his fingers and make it happen. Likewise, Trump swore he'd bring peace to the Middle East, especially resolving the Gaza conflict. He claimed in October 7, 2023, attack would never have gone under his watch, and promised to restore stability fast. Yet, the war in Gaza rages on, with zero significant progress, despite his initial pushes from his envoy, Steve Witkoff. This is just another unmet diplomatic pledge piling up. Also, he said no new more wars, and he attacked Iran. And on the economy, Trump campaigned of easing the pain for working Americans, vowing to slash grocery prices and the cost of living overall. As Senator Tammy Baldwin pointed out, grocery store bills are up, and that's the frustration everyone feels. Trump assured us prices would drop dramatically and fast from day one. Instead, inflation's climbed to 3%, and, for example, egg prices have surged to over $6 a dozen. His proposed 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and now on the EU and Japan, would jack those costs even more, totally blowing his economic relief talk. Housing was another big one. Trump promised to make homes more affordable and drop the mortgage rates to 3%, but no real plan has shown up, and rates are still sky high. The American Federation of Teachers has slammed his inaction, highlighting how families are still struggling big time. Immigration. Trump's agenda was built on the largest domestic deportation operation in American history. He issued over a dozen executive orders, but deportations in January alone were only 37,666 lower than Biden's monthly average. Legal fights have bogged down everything, and his scheme to ship 30,000 migrants to Gitmo Bay has only moved 400 at a cost of the taxpayers at $40 million. Supporters who expected lightning-fast action are left hanging, and it's frustrating. Healthcare has unraveled too. Trump vowed to protect Medicare and deliver something better than the Affordable Care Act, but his big legislation, including nearly $1 trillion in Medicare cuts, putting coverage for millions at risk, include 1 million folks in Wisconsin, as Senator Baldwin noted. California Governor Newsom called it a big, beautiful betrayal, and Trump's rollback of Biden-era drug cost caps has people accusing him of putting corporations over citizens. Other flops: ending birthright citizenship got shot down by a federal judge in January as unconstitutional. Banning sanctuary cities, no legislation has even been drafted. Tackling the opioid crisis on day one, nada. Even overdoses keep rising. And banning critical race theory from military training, that was a non-issue since it was never there to begin with. Now, one of the most contentious ones ties back to what we just discussed. Trump's promise to release the Jeffrey Epstein files. During the 2024 campaign, he kept saying he'd declassify and disclose all the government records on Epstein, getting his base all excited. As we said, Attorney General Pam Bondi amped it up in February on Fox News, claiming she had the Epstein client list on her desk and the FBI was sifting through tens of thousands of videos. But the Justice Department FBI memo from this month concludes no such list exists, there was no blackmail evidence, and Epstein's 2019 death was indeed a suicide, directly contradicting Bondi's hype and earlier doubts from FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino about the suicide story. This backpedal has ignited outrage, with Republican Anna Paulina Luna and commentator Rogan Handley labelling a shameful cover-up, failing to deliver with transparency after building it up really eroded trust among Trump's supporters. Another huge broken promise: implementing the Doge recommendations headed by Elon Musk. Trump touted Doge as a game changer to streamline the feds, cutting bureaucracy and slashing wasteful spending, but as of today, July 13th, no major Doge ideas have been put into play. Musk pushed for wild stuff like mass firings and creeping data collection, but legal walls and congressional resistance have stopped it cold. Critics say this failure torpedoes Trump's talk of fiscal responsibility. And perhaps the most damaging of all is his vow to tackle the $37 trillion national debt, blaming Biden's policies for blowing it up. Trump promised to bring it down, but his big beautiful bill that's spoiling legislative mess has either jacked up the debt or is on track to do so. The Congressional Budget Office figures his tax cuts, tariffs and spending plans could add $2 trillion to the deficit over the next decade. Those Medicare slashes and austerity bits are wiped out by new costs like that of the $40 million Gitmo dud we just said. Economists are warning Trump's policies are making the debt worse, not better, flipping his campaign rhetoric on its head. Fiscal hawks like Senator Rand Paul have ripped it up as a fiscal disaster. In wrapping this up, Trump's second term is leaving behind a trail of promises that shattered his promises made, promises kept line. From botching ends to the wars in Ukraine and Gaza, to ignoring economic and healthcare relief to fulfill. From botch ending to the wars in Ukraine and Middle East and not starting any like he did in Iran, to ignoring economic and healthcare relief, his unfulfilled vows show how hard it is to turn talk into policy. Not releasing those Epstein files, despite the admin's own hype, has turned off supporters craving transparency. No movement on Doge and ballooning the national debt with his big beautiful bill screams discontent between words and deeds. And what happened about the audit of the gold at Fort Knox? That never happened as well. No, as Senator Tammy Bolden put that this has been one of the greatest bait and switches of our time. If Trump wants to save his legacy, he better start delivering results, or he'll be remembered for the promises he broke, not the ones he kept. If you've been reading the channel's Substack, which drops a fresh article every single day, link in the description below, you've probably caught my deep dives into AI, the good, the bad, and all the wild possibilities of what might come next. Well, speaking of AI breakthroughs, just a couple of days ago on July 9th, Elon Musk and his team of XAI unleashed Grock 4, the latest and most powerful AI model yet. Built on XAI, Grock 4 is being hailed as the world's most intelligent AI, with game-changing features like native tool to use handling complex tasks, real-time search integration to pull in the latest info on the fly, advanced reasoning that emphasizes first principles thinking for better logical consistency, specialized coding capabilities through something they call Grock 4 code, multimodal support for processing images and more, and even dual model setups for enhanced performance. It's designed to push the boundaries of AI, what AI can do, from smarter conversations to tackling tough problems in science, engineering and beyond. And in fact, I used it for a trip to Peru. I asked Grock I made a list of things we wanted to see in Peru when we arrived, which days we wanted to be in each place, and when we left, and asked it to put in 5-star hotels to stay at, and pressed the button and gave us a huge itinerary in a list, who to contact in the hotels, for tours, where to buy tickets for like Machu Picchu, train tickets, everything. It saved probably 3 or 4 hours of work. It's designed to push the boundaries of what AI can do, from smarter conversations to tackling tough problems in science, engineering and beyond, as I just said. You can access Grock 4 right now on platforms like Grock.com, X.com, the Grock iOS and Android apps, or through the X apps, but keep in mind it's exclusive to Super Grock subscribers on Grock.com and Premium Plus users on X. If you're curious about subscription details, head over to X for the full scoop. This release is a big step forward in AI race, folks, blending cutting-edge tech with that signature X AI flair inspired by the likes of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But, as I've been saying in my Substack pieces, with great power becomes great responsibility. Let's see how Grock 4 shapes up in the real world, the upsides, the potential pitfalls, and what it means for all of us. Stay tuned, because AI isn't slowing down anytime soon. All right, folks, that's the wrap for live show 144, the Trump-Epstein Coverup, Betrayal and Failure. What do you think? We've unpacked the promises that turned to dust, the memo that slammed the truth on the door, the revolt from MAGA base, the deep state questions of who's really being protected here. This isn't just a scandal, it's a wake-up call. The victims deserve justice. The American people deserve transparency. And we can't let this slide into the shadows. If tonight's opened your eyes or fired you up, do your part. Subscribe to the channel right now, share this video with everyone you know, and hit the thumbs up to boost the signal. Together we demand the full unredacted files and hold the powerful accountable. No more cover-ups, no more betrayals. And as I said, you'll see me next in Peru, so watch out for those videos starting next week, probably from Sunday or Monday. Thanks for joining me live from Minsk, Belarus. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and I'll see you next time. Good night.